On the first morning, she walks into South Shore High as Miss Carter. The bell is still ringing when a fight breaks out by the lockers, and a phone she doesn't own begins vibrating under her desk tape there, set to a number that knows her real name. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. Detective Imani Cole, a black Chicago cop with a teacher mother and a brother she couldn't save, goes undercover as a substitute at South Shore High, where students have been disappearing and reappearing with strange, coached alibis. Rumors point to a recruiting pipeline part mentorship program, part trap run through a flashy nonprofit with friends in City Hall and tentacles in the neighborhood. As Imani bridges hard-boiled police work and the delicate trust of teenagers, she's forced to balance her cover against a ticking clock. When one of the missing kids shows up alive and calls her by her real name, the job turns personal, and the walls of her double life start to close in. The school smells like pencil shavings and overcooked pizza, like wet jackets and snow that never quite melted out of the floor tiles, even though it's late March and the sky over 79th Street is finally the color of a bruise fading. South Shore High rises in brick and murals, panthers painted in royal purple on the gym wall. There's a banner near the front entrance college and careers night, tacked up crooked, wind-buckled at the corners. The metal detector hums, the security aide says good morning without looking up, and Imani Cole becomes Miss Carter by flipping a badge around her neck and swallowing her name. First day? The aide asks, eyes still on the plastic tray where a pile of keys and phones glint. First day, Imani says, voice casual. She steps through and watches the screen stutter over the outline of her belt buckle. The Glock is not here. It's 4 miles away in a lockbox in a closet in an apartment under a different name. She got used to leaving pieces of herself in containers she couldn't carry. A boy with a navy hoodie slants in behind her. Hoodie up, backpack slung low. He smiles at Imani like a dare. You gon' be the kind that write us up for being late, but y'all staff be late too? I'm the kind who gives you the benefit of the doubt, Imani says. At least until second period. He huffs a fake laugh, steps through, keys in the tray. The metal detector chirps. He nods like they made a contract. She has third-floor coverage for English and social studies today. Room 317 during second and fifth periods Miss Pike's classes, out with a broken ankle. The subfolder, thick, photocopied lesson plans, a seating chart with names stabbed in black pen, and little notes like talker and sweetheart and bathroom runner. At the top, please do not let Deandra sit with Jameer. Some teacher handwriting looks like frustration. This one looks like fear trying hard to be neat. The hallway is a tide of motion girls, with knotless braids and acrylics tapping texts against their palms. Boys clapping hands in quick 3-part bursts. An assistant principal's voice becoming an announcement even before the intercom picks it up. Third-floor stairwell. Let's move. Let's move. Banners hang for a robotics team and the mock trial squad, but their edges are curled and someone drew a crown over the judge's head. Imani's mother taught 7th grade for 22 years. She can still hear her mother's end-of-day voice, husky, tired, full of the day's names. She can still see her brother in a graduation gown, smile too big, future too small for it. Cop work taught her to stop seeing ghosts in hallways. Undercover work taught her to let them walk beside her anyway. She passed the teacher's lounge long enough to learn 2 names Whitaker, who said articulate twice in 2 minutes about a black student, and Price, the counselor, who said resources, like the word itself, could pay rent. She tucked their names into the pocket behind her tongue, where she stores things that might matter later. Room 317 is an old room. Chalk dust lives in the windowsill. Someone put a taped-up photo of James Baldwin over the clock. A couple of plants droop near the radiator, their leaves pinched brown at the edges. At the teacher's desk, under the stapler and the jar of pens, she finds the subfolder with Miss Pike's instructions, and taped flat beneath the underside of the desk, a phone. It vibrates against the wood like a heart under a floorboard. She doesn't touch it as students start drifting in. Phones away, she says, because she has to. Screens down. Heads up. A girl with a denim jacket types one-handed and meets Imani's gaze without breaking rhythm. You knew? Carter, Imani says, writing the name on the whiteboard. Her hand is steady. Ms. Carter. You from where? Here. The girl huffs like that answer is both wrong and uninteresting. I'm Kisha, she says anyway, and smiles like it's a courtesy. Another student, taller, skinnier, with a scar on his left eyebrow that turns it into a permanent question mark, slides into a chair and tucks something into the back compartment of his friend's desk. The friend flinches like a reflex. The tall one's hoodie says SSK in block letters South Shore Kings. The school's soccer team calls themselves the Panthers. That SSK isn't varsity. The letters are bubble outlined, hand-inked. A claim staked right on cotton. Imani smiles, chalk screeching, as she underlines the word poetry on the board. We're reading Gwendolyn Brooks today, she says. We real cool. We don't read that off the rip, a voice says, back of the room. We watch a video. Today we read, Imani says, and then we write. I want 8 lines, yours. No rhymes unless it's for you. No cussing, unless you mean it. Someone throws a wad of paper. It hits the Baldwin photo and drops like a bad omen at the clock's base. She doesn't turn toward the desk. She circles the room instead, shoulders loose like a coach walking the sideline. She sees a key carved into the metal lip of Dry's desk, the teeth of it notched into a crown shape. 2 desks over, under the seat, someone has scratched a pattern of triangles into the paint. It looks like nothing until she sees it a second time, and a third in pencil scrawl along the edge of a notebook, tattooed tiny on the soft inside of a wrist. A language, maybe. Or a joke. Undercover work is 90% learning the jokes. Second period is restless. The heater bangs. A girl asks 3 times to go to the bathroom, then folds when Imani says she can go after she writes 2 lines. Kisha writes fast, laughing under her breath, then grows serious and taps her pencil like she's knocking on a door, only she hears. The phone under the desk hums again. Low. 3 pulses. Stop, start, stop. Imani gets them started on the poem, talks about pool halls in summer and the word lurk, with its shank tucked in the K. She has to keep her voice low enough the class leans in. Halfway through, the door pops open. A man in a gray suit sticks his head in. He's 40, maybe. Black, with a high fade and a smile that looks more real than most administrators' smiles. Checking on my cover, he says with a little flourish. I'm Mr. Gaines, vice principal. Miss Carter, Imani says. You need anything, Miss Carter? Just names, she says. And a bell that rings 5 minutes later. Gaines laughs genuinely. We're working on the bell, he says. Names, you get those one at a time. He looks around the room like he's cataloging faces he hopes never to see on a list he dreads. When he leaves, he gives Dre a look that says, I see you. Dre meets it and looks away first. Interesting. Imani waits for a lull, then drifts to the desk as if to pick up a dry erase marker. Her fingers find the tape's edge, lift the phone like she's swatting a fly, flat palming it under a stack of worksheets. The phone is cheap, burner light, the kind somebody buys 2 at a time and ditches twice as fast. She sets the volume to nothing, opens it. Unknown number. Welcome to the building, detective. No name, no emoji. The text lands like a hand on her shoulder from behind. She doesn't answer. She places the phone face down, heart rate only fractionally faster. She has been recognized before. A corner boy in back of the yards, 3 summers ago, whose cousin she dated in college. An auntie on 63rd who recognized her mother's eyes. Those times were coincidence. This one feels like a plan. She finishes class with a voice a shade too steady. When the bell rings, she stands at the door and tells each of them good work, even if the work was 3 words and a question mark. Dre lingers. You ain't from here, he says. Define here, Imani says. Here, he says. He still hasn't smiled. I moved around, she says. Try out for the slam team, she says, like it's an afterthought. You got something. He watches her carefully the way boys do when they're measuring the ground under their feet for traps. Then he shrugs. Ain't my thing. Good, she says. Most interesting things weren't your thing until they were. He snorts something like a laugh and slides into the hall. She texts her handler from the bathroom stall with the good lock, the one that's been rehung, so the door actually lines up. She doesn't use the burner she confiscated, of course. She uses the old app Theo Randall swore by before he swore at it, the one that pushes messages through like drops of water through plastic, where every letter disappears after it's read. In. Phone taped under 317 desk. Message, welcome to the building, detective. Possible leak or wrong assumption. Staff aware? Kids? Out a minute later. No staff know your assignment. We're tight. Assume student. Assume program. Eyes wide. Theo's tone lives inside the message. It makes her want to smile, even as it makes her want to scream. He thinks caution is comfort. She pockets her phone. She looks at herself in the mirror. The cardigan she thinks looks most like Miss Carter and least like Detective Cole. The hair braided in a pattern that feels like armor. The face she has learned to hold still. At lunch she tries the lounge again. Ms. Whitaker bumps the microwave twice and calls it temperamental, and then glances at Imani's Tupperware like curry is an aggression. Where'd you transfer in from? She asks, voice sugared. District, Imani says. Whitaker's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I do enjoy when we get subs who, relate. Relate, Imani says, letting the words sit there like a coin between them. Sure. Price, the counselor, gives her a quick, rueful grin. You'll get used to it, he says, not unkindly. He wears his tie loose, sleeves rolled to the forearms. He looks like someone who is always about to carry a box for someone else. Imani eats standing up. It's an old habit. You can move faster if you aren't rooted. The lounge bulletin board is a collage field trip permissions, a flyer for a food pantry on 87th, a poem a student wrote about Lake Michigan in winter. There's also a glossy 8x11 for Lakefront Futures, a nonprofit she's heard Theo curse about. Muay Thai classes for youth, tech internships, mentorship dinners with community leaders. The photo shows a ring of smiling black teenagers with a white guy at the center, mid-laugh, his sleeves pistol-gripped to the elbow. The white guy has a modest watch and an immodest grin. The name under his photo reads, Director, Carson Vale. Imani takes a picture of the flyer with her phone. No flash. No sound. She debates tearing it down. She leaves it up. Those glossy sheets breed when you tear one. 5th period is heavier. The room feels like someone scooped the air out and forgot to put it back. A seat in the 2nd row is empty. The name on the chart for that seat is Tyron Parker. The note scrawled beside it. Cousin says he transferred. Mom said Ohio. Not sure. Transferred is the word schools use when they run out of other words. Ohio is what people say when they don't want to say nothing. Kisha leans over her desk as if the empty seat is a magnet. He ain't transfer, she murmurs without being asked. He just, Do I? Imani asks. Kisha lifts one shoulder. The King's Take, Miss Carter. She whispers like it's an urban legend you tell in the dark, except she doesn't smile. They need runners. They need folks to stand outside and look innocent. They need folks to wipe their phones clean. They got a tech thing too. Lakefront. It's all the same. They tell you you're special. Ain't special. You apart. And you can't take yourself apart when you're ready. Imani keeps her face the way she's learned to keep it curious, not alarmed. What about Tyron? She says, soft. Kisha's mouth flattens. He say he gone take care of his moms. Then he gone. Folks seen him a week, maybe two. After, then no more. He ain't no runner. He too sweet for that. But sweet is what they like. Sweet folks do anything if you promise safety. The heater bangs twice, like someone kicking the pipes. Outside, a siren howls down Exchange and merges with another until it's hard to know where one scream ends and the next begins. Imani has a lesson to teach. She teaches it. She writes a sentence on the board that she hopes some part of them will read again later when no one's looking. You don't have to be the person someone told you you were. By last bell, the day is a coat she has worn too long. The hallway hums like a song everyone knows, and no one wrote. The light in the stairwell flickers, and when it flickers, she sees the triangle pattern again sprayed small, in silver, near the third-floor landing where a camera can't see it. 3 triangles linked point to point, their centers forming a hex. She remembers a case file from Theo's trunk. Triangles like that at the edges of surveillance stills. Graffiti that showed up and then got scrubbed by buildings in the same 24-hour rhythm that meant somebody with a city email told them where to scrub. She snaps another photo. The flash pops off too late. A boy at the top of the stairs looks down at her like she just told a secret. He wears a varsity jacket that's never been on a field. You lost? He asks. Going down, she says easily. Like everybody else. He grins. It's not nice. Some folks go up. Gravity's rude like that. He laughs short, like they've agreed to something, and disappears into the flow. Outside, the cold has teeth again. The sky is colorless in a way that erases the lake. She waits at the bus stop, because Ms. Carter waits at bus stops. She feels the tension at the edge of her vision, like a border where she might as well hang a flag. You are here. Across the street, Harold's Chicken glows neon red, the heat lamps tinting everyone's faces devil warm. 2 boys split a 6-piece and lick sauce off their fingers. A mom drags a daughter by a backpack strap toward the bus. Cars bump over the same pothole and make the same thunk. A white van rolls slow, then rolls faster. Her phone buzzes. Theo. Price is clean. Vet him quick. Gaines looks good. Watch Whitaker. She's not your problem, but she likes to be one. Imani thumbs back. Got a flyer for Lakefront Futures in the lounge. Vale leads. Kids mention Kings and Lakefront in the same breath. Theo. Vale gives money to everybody. Board includes a councilwoman. Watch your tone. Imani. My tone's fine. Theo. Your tone cracks when you tense. You're tensing. She pockets the phone. She inhales until her ribs press against the cardigan. She exhales, counting down from 8. On beat 4, she sees it. In the bus shelter's ad panel, someone has scraped the dust from the glass in 3 triangles. Linked. They want to be seen. Or they want to make seeing them feel unavoidable. She rides the bus up to her apartment in South Shore, on 71st and Crandon, up the narrow stairs that creak in the middle. She locks the door with muscle memory. She puts the Ms. Carter cardigan on the back of a chair and the Ms. Carter badge on the table, and she lets Detective Cole's face back into her muscles. Detective Cole is angles where Miss Carter is curves, silence where Miss Carter is laughter. She calls her mother. She listens to her mother talk about the church food drive and the arthritis in her fingers and a girl in her choir who sings like she's been promised something. She says she's fine because that's the only acceptable answer. She cracks a smile when her mother says, "You eating?" and answers with the lie they both agree to. She listens to the police scanner for an hour, picked up by habit like a lullaby. It gives her addresses like prayers. 7,900 block of Siluela. Shots fired. 7,100 block of S. Jeffrey, domestic. She hears nothing about a boy named Tyron Parker. She wouldn't. The streets don't report missing the way schools do. They just keep a ledger of debts. That night she dreams in triangles. The next morning, the sky is the color of a pencil eraser. She gets to school early. The security aid is the same. The metal detector hums. A different kid in a navy hoodie smiles like a dare. The day is an identical twin of yesterday, until second period, when the fire alarm pulses. It's not the slow test whine. It's the real thing, the groan, insistent clatter that says, "Get out now." Kids groan and reach for phones. The heater bangs like a drum trying to keep up. The intercom coughs to life and chokes. Evac, and static. Imani hears the corridors filling. She sees Dre already up and moving, face alert in a way that says he doesn't believe fires are accidents. She pivots to the door, voice pitching to command. "Leave your bags," she calls. Phones in pockets. Hands visible. We move together. A girl reaches for her tote. "My inhaler." "Bring it," Imani says. "You, Kisha, grab the..." She points at the writing on the board, at the plant near the radiator that is somehow a child to someone, then shakes it off. She knew better. People first. They pour into the hallway. The crush of bodies makes a human river against the stairwells. It smells like static and sweat, and that particular brand of fear that looks like laughter. Someone yells, "Smoke!" Someone else yells, "Cap!" Imani keeps her class a cluster by habit, tallest on the outside, smallest in the middle, like the church picnic line her mother always arranged. She uses the crush. She lets it fold her toward the east wing, where the lockers are new in only the way lockers get new. A paint job over dents, and the bathrooms have hand dryers that don't work. A boy bumps her and says, "Watch it, Miss Carter," and something tiny and cold drops into her coat pocket. Her hand closes over a key. The same teeth and crown as the carving on Dre's desk. She doesn't stop. She doesn't look. She clocks the custodian's door at the corner of the east wing unmarked. Paint different by half a shade. She clocks the padlock on it, new, shiny combination. She clocks the camera above the door, half turned toward the stairwell like a lazy eye, red light lazy blinking. She clocks the triangle spray, painted thumb-sized near the door jamb, where someone's hand might rest when they turn the knob. "Ms. Carter," Kisha shouts. "Here." They are pushed into the courtyard. The cold eats sweat, makes steam like ghosts leaving mouths. The gym doors open, swallow classes in lines that are not lines. Teachers hold clipboards like shields. The vice principal's voice is a trumpet. "On the field, let's go, let's go." Imani counts. She lost 2 kids in the crush gone left instead of right, then sees them spit out by another doorway and waves them in. One of them is breathing too fast. "You got your inhaler?" she asks the girl who'd asked for it. The girl nods, presses it to her lips, breathes, color coming back slow. "I'm good." "Good," Imani says, scanning the windows. 3rd floor east wing. Smoke curls from one of the vents, gray as a lie. "Something burning?" Dre says low. "Something," Imani says. He looks at her like he's deciding whether she's the kind of adult who says what she sees. He opens his mouth, but the all-clear blats suddenly, urgently. The crowd exhales like a single animal. False alarm. The intercom coughs. Back to class. Back inside, the smell is sharper. It's not smoke. It's the acrid stink of a hot wire and melted plastic. It smells like someone burned a camera blind. Imani walks her class back slow. The custodian's door is open now. A red cart nosed out like a tongue. The padlock dangles. Cut. Inside, the shelves are a mess of paper towels and bleach, and boxes labeled with a handwriting that tries and fails to look official. In the corner, sitting pretty on a crate, is a gray tote stamped Lakefront Futures, the logo a wave that curls into 3 triangles. No one is supposed to be looking. Students are supposed to be shuffling. She bends, quick as a sneeze, flips the tote's lid. Inside, flyers, wristbands, a stack of consent forms on lakefront letterhead, and under that a smaller stack of paper in Spanish, then in Polish, then in something Cyrillic. Community, multilingual, inclusive, that's the script. Beneath all that, a plastic bag with disposable phones in it. The same make as the one taped under her desk. The same make as the one in a lot of case photos. A post-it note on the bag reads, "To be programmed." She doesn't take the bag. She slides one consent form under her coat, the way women slip love letters. She closes the lid. She breathes. "You good?" Dre asks, right at her elbow. He's closer than she'd let a student get if she were only Miss Carter. "Back to class," she says lightly. "You trying to shepherd or be shepherded?" He makes a face and saunters off. Imani watches the camera above them, the red light dead now, vision cooled, hearing its broken whine like a small animal. Back in the classroom, second period has stretched into third. Someone has written big cap on the board. Someone else has erased it. Ms. Whitaker opens the door without knocking, eyes bright in that way that means she's been waiting for something she can gossip over. Do we know what it was? She asks theatrical soft. "Alarm," Imani says. Whitaker's smile widens. "So brave," she says, and closes the door. Imani hates that word in her mouth. She'd prefer useful. She teaches, because that is what she's supposed to be doing. She reads a paragraph from Baldwin out loud. She makes them write about a time they felt invisible and a time they wished they had been. The room goes quiet in the way rooms go quiet when the floor is shifting silently and everyone is trying to figure out who knows. At the end of the day, she slides into Price's office like a student with a pass. He looks up, relieved to see someone with fewer fires than he has. His window looks out over the parking lot, which is to say it looks out over a collection of unkept promises. "I'm Miss Carter," she begins. "Lionel Price," he says. "I heard you managed the evacuation like a pro." Gaines was impressed. "I held a line," Imani says. "I used to coach, not here." True in some other life. Her mother's version of her life. Price rubs his eyes. "We've had 6 false alarms this year," he says. "Kids make it a game, or someone gets bored, or someone is trying to see what the adults do when we panic." "Do we panic?" she asks. "All the time," he says. He smiles, then lets the smile drop, because he is the kind of adult who lets the truth sit in the air for a minute. "You taught before?" "Here and there," she lies. "You in it for a while, or just until Miss Pike comes back?" "Until Miss Pike comes back," she says, and hears how the lie wears her voice like a coat. "But I'm here to make my time count." He nods. "I like you already," he says, and gives it to her straight. "We're bleeding kids in ways I don't have names for. They don't all leave in a way you can report. They fade, and then I get a note on my desk from a cousin with a phone number that never catches, and then we call it a transfer. Tyron Parker," she says, and watches him watch her. "Ty," Price says softly. He turns to the wall behind his desk. It's lined with photos kids holding acceptance letters. Kids on stage with medals. Kids in group shots in rooms where adults stand 2 paces away. There's a gap where a photo was. The outline of the paper has bleached the wall around it a shade lighter. "I used to keep the ones I lost up there, too," he says, half to himself. Felt honest, felt wrong. "Now I keep the ones who might come back." "Who's looking?" Imani asks. "When they fade?" "Me, sometimes," he says. Gaines, when he has 5 spare minutes. A youth pastor named Jasmine from down the block. Moms with no money and all the time in the world and no way to spend it. You? Imani breathes in. She lets Detective Cole rise just enough to meet his eye without flinching. "If I see something, I'll tell you," she says. "And it is the truth, even if it's not the whole. And if a kid needs something, I'll make noise." Price's smile lifts one corner. "Make noise," he says. "You'll fit." After school, she walks the block twice. The custodian's door is closed again. The padlock has been replaced by an older, duller one, with scratches near the numbers as if someone who knew the code forgot it once, or wanted you to think they did. The camera's red light is alive again, watchful and bored. She doesn't open the door. She doesn't open any doors alone. She cuts across to Harold's, not for chicken, but for the sightline. The windows throw the street back at itself. In the reflection, she studies who studies her. A woman with a stroller. A man with a day's labor in his hands. A boy in a varsity jacket with no team, laughing with his mouth and not his eyes. When she leaves, there's a flyer tucked under her wiper. Lakefront Futures Talent Night. Guest speaker, Councilwoman Rainey. Free pizza. Safe rides home. The triangle logo in the wave curls like a wink. Back home, she reads the consent form at her table under a light that pings occasionally like it wants attention. Parent-guardian authorization for participation in the Lakefront Futures Mentorship and Workforce Pipeline. There's a space for parental ID, a space for student phone number, 3 checkboxes. Data services, logistics, community engagement. It looks as harmless as anything with that many checkboxes ever looks. At the bottom, a small paragraph. By signing, you authorize placement through partner organizations vetted by Lakefront Futures and agree to data sharing to improve program outcomes. Partner organizations is where the devil hides. Vetted is what the devil calls flirting. She texts Theo a photo. He sends back a thumbs up and then a line that isn't a joke. We need a warrant for their storage. Judge won't sign based on vibes. She types, "Kid dropped me a key. Crown teeth. Same as desk carving. Custodian closet had a tote with burners to be programmed." Theo's typing bubble pulses, disappears, reappears. He wants to tell her to slow down and hurry up at the same time. He wants to get to be the one who opens the door. "We'll get there," he finally writes. "Stay teacher. Get us kids, not cases." She wants to tell him kids are always cases. Cases are always kids. She doesn't. The next day, the sky breaks to blue like the city remembered it's near a lake. There's a pep rally third period, an excuse to cram everybody into the gym bleachers and pretend that a game will win something larger than points. Gaines calls it community. Whitaker calls it a nice way to keep kids from cutting. Price calls it an hour to breathe. Imani stands near the exit with the staff, arms folded, eyes scanning without looking like she's scanning. The band is loud enough to hide a lot. The drumline thunders. The chant leaders do what they do. The principal talks about excellence and resilience and grants. A local news crew pans the crowd for the moments that will make their B-roll look like hope sells ads. Imani stops clapping long enough to feel the prickle on the back of her neck that means being watched. She finds him in the 4th row center section. The seat that should hold Tyron Parker holds a boy who is almost him cheeks less full, eyes older. He is flanked by 2 other boys with their arms not quite touching him and touching him in every way that matters. He is alive. His skin has that hospital clean look you get when you've been inside somewhere that isn't your home. He scans the gym as if he's counting exits. Then his eyes find Imani, and he doesn't look away. Her heart has learned not to run. It jogs anyway. Tyron rises like someone pressed a button. The boys flanking him rise too, and a staff monitor with a lanyard and the tired gait of a man who used to play. Football strides toward them with the genial authority of a man who has broken up enough scuffles to know the first sign is always the same breath. He gestures. Tyron shakes his head once. The boys exchange words that don't look like jokes. Tyron puts a hand to his mouth like he's biting a cuticle. Then he slides down the aisle. He doesn't walk toward an exit. He walks toward her. The drumline swallows the quiet between beats and makes it a roar. People are standing now, kids chanting something funny just to chant. The principal smiling wider because cameras are on him. Tyron moves like a fish upstream, slipping through clusters, eyes never leaving Imani's face. He is shorter than she remembers from his school photo by an inch. Or maybe he just learned how to fold himself smaller. He stops on the mat below her and speaks without moving his mouth. His words are careful, angled up so they hit only her. "You shouldn't be here," he says. "Detective." The drumline hammers a roll like a heartbeat. The cymbals crash. All the triangles in her world align for one instant, a web she's somehow standing in the center of. She doesn't flinch. "Neither should you," she says, lips barely moving. The boys flanking him are close now, in the current of bodies. One is the varsity jacket boy from the stairwell, crown stitched into the sleeve. The other has a Boston cap with the B blacked out to look like an 8. They stand just far enough to pretend not to be with him. They look like shadows are learning how to walk. Tyron's mouth twists into something too heavy to be a smile. "I'm trying to fix it," he says so soft she reads the words more than hears them. But he sees everything. "Who?" she asks. "Vale?" She lets it ride her breath like a leaf. Tyron's eyes flick, a flinch. He shakes his head. It's not him. He thinks it is. "Then who?" "Don't," Tyron says. "Not here." And then he turns to go. The boys pivot with him. Gaines notices them. Of course he does. And he notices her. Of course he does. And something like a frown passes across his features. Not because he knows what's happening, but because he senses a ripple you don't see, unless you've learned to look for a lack. An absence of noise where noise should be. Imani considers following. Miss Carter stays where she is. Detective Cole counts lines of retreat and the weight of a gym bleacher when it falls. When the pep rally ends, the news crew gets 3 kids to say something into a microphone about their dreams. A band files out on cadence. Teachers shepherd and scold. The gym empties in a swirl of purple and black. Tyron is gone by the time she reaches the hallway, and his absence, like the photo gap on Price's wall, screams louder than a presence ever could. She ducks into 317 and finds the burner phone back under the desk, taped anew with fresh tape. It buzzes in her hand the moment she peels it free. Unknown number. Smile for the cameras, Miss Carter. She sets it face down on the desk and breathes even and clean until her lungs stop feeling like they're wearing a weight vest. She flips the phone over and thumbs a reply with deliberate slowness, typing the way she would write if every letter would be read in court. "Who is this?" The response arrives before she can set the phone down again. "Someone who can help you not get hurt." Then a second message. "And someone who can hurt you if you make me." She deletes nothing. She copies the numbers down the way you copy a song you want to memorize, even if you don't believe in it. She tucks the phone under a worksheet stack again, as if neither of them will look, and goes to find Gaines, because she needs the kind of help that looks like a door she can have the right to open. He's in the main office, tie loosened, talking to a mom with a stroller and the 1,000-yard stare of someone who worked a night shift and a day. "We can get him texting me direct," Gaines says. "I'll put my number on the card. If he's not home by." He sees Imani in the doorway, registers the set of her shoulders. "Give me 1 second," he tells the mom, and the mom nods like she knows there is never only 1 second. "What's up?" He asks Imani in a low voice. "Security camera in East Wing was fried during the alarm," she says. "Custodian closet had a tote with Lakefront's logo. Somebody replaced a lock fast. A kid who's supposed to be gone stood in the gym and called me something no student should know to say." She watches his face for the wince. He only leans in, like a man at a choir stands straining for the soprano line. "What did he call you?" Gaines asks. "Detective," she says. He doesn't even blink. "Huh," he says, the syllable a whole thought. "I didn't put your resume in the lounge, but folks talk. Or they think they know. And kids hear better than we do." "I'm not the only thing that's compromised," Imani says, and pushes the consent form across the counter. Gaines reads fast. He snorts at the word vetted. He slides the paper back toward her. "I know the board member," he says. "Rainey. She likes to hold a mic. Lakefront gives free pizza and promises a ride home. We don't have budget for either. So parents sign. They always do when free gets said. I need to see their storage," she says softly. "Not as Miss Carter." "And your other name helps us how?" he asks without judgment. "It opens a door I'm not supposed to know exists," she says. He scratches his jaw. "We have a storeroom in the East Wing," he says, matching her softness. "It belonged to a program we didn't ask for and can't get judged for. I don't have keys. That's above me, but I got a man who does favors. He's 3 months from retirement. He hates the word vetted more than you do." "Introduce me," Imani says. He shakes his head once. "I'll introduce him to my problem," he says. "You? You'll just happen to be nearby. We'll be very surprised together." Imani doesn't smile. She feels the knot in her chest loosen a notch. She feels another knot tie off next to it, smaller, sharper, made of wire. The rest of the day wears itself out. The light outside falls quietly onto the west-facing windows and turns the dust into confetti. She gathers the subfolder like a normal person, nods to Whitaker without biting her, tells Price she'll swing by his office tomorrow after first period, given a student she's concerned about, but not in a panic way yet. On her way out, she slips into the East Wing one last time, just far enough to hear a click that isn't a lock and a whisper that isn't a voice. The triangle mark on the door jamb looks freshened. She thinks of Tyron's eyes and the way he said "he" like the word could taste, like it tasted wrong. She thinks of the burner phone buzzing, like it knows the rhythm of this building better than she does. Outside, the sunlight makes the street look honest. It lies, of course. All light lies at the margins. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number, the burner's twin. "You want to help kids? Stop by the auditorium tonight at 7. No cops. No lies. Come alone. We'll start with Ty." She looks at the message until every letter sinks into her. She could text Theo. She could call Gaines. She could forward the number to a unit that would flood the building with a dozen men named Officer who have good intentions and bad timing. She could turn left toward safety. She tucks the phone into her pocket and chooses a middle road, the one that looks like a mistake until it isn't. She texts Theo nothing. She texts Gaines only. Working late. Might need a light on. Then she goes home and changes. Miss Carter's cardigan for a black sweater that doesn't catch the light and boots that don't squeak. And when she returns to the school at 6:58, the building looks like a mouth closed around secrets. The security aid is gone. The metal detector is dark. The auditorium doors are propped open by a wedge that looks like it came from a wood shop that stopped being a class when no one could hire teachers. The stage lights are off, but the house lights glow at half, pale as a sick day. She moves down the aisle with the confidence of a person who knows you either exude fear or you exude boundaries, and fear is the smell people follow. "Detective," a voice says from the shadows near the stage. It's young and sounds like it learned authority on YouTube. "Miss Carter." "Pick a name," she says, and lets the echo eat the edge off it. Tyron steps into the wash of the house, lights like a boy walking into a photograph. The 2 boys who flanked him in the gym lean against the curtain, hands in pockets in a way that says their pockets are not empty. On the stage, under the edge of the grand drape, boxes with the Lakefront logo sit like extra set pieces in a play about community. "I said come alone," the young voice says, and it's not Tyron's this time. From the opposite wing, a man steps out, early 30s, tie loosened, sleeves rolled, handsome the way mayors are handsome. He could be a teacher on his best day. He could be a politician on his worst. He could be somebody's older brother who made it out and came back to teach the rest how. He could be all of them. He smiles like there's a camera somewhere he wants to find. "Ms. Carter," he says, and even up close his smile doesn't twitch. "I'm Carson Vale." Of course he is. "And you're going to help," he says. "But we're going to do it my way." Behind her, at the back of the auditorium, a door clicks, not loudly, but loud enough that everyone on stage hears it, turns their heads a fraction, resets their weight on their feet. Every triangle in Imani's life tilts. She keeps her breath slow. She keeps her hands visible. She says, "Start talking." Vale's smile tightens. Tywin's eyes flick again to the exits. The boys shift like shadows getting ready to pick a side. Somewhere above them, near the catwalk, a small red light blinks awake. It looks like a camera getting its sight back. It looks like a choice. Imani doesn't look up. She looks at Tywin and then at Vale, and feels in a deep part of her the shape of the story changing hands. And then her pocket buzzes, and she doesn't have to look to know who it is. Unknown number. Someone who can help you not get hurt. Someone who can hurt you if you make me. She lets it buzz. She lifts her chin a fraction. "Tywin," she says. "Tell me who he is." Tywin swallows. He parts his lips. Vale's smile widens, and he lifts one hand like he's about to conduct. The door at the back of the auditorium opens another inch. The air changes. A not quite breeze. Imani hears the softest scrape of rubber on tile. She wonders if she should have told Theo. She wonders if she has already told him simply by moving the way she always does. She wonders if the red light above her is a promise, or a threat, or both. She wonders, and then she stops wondering because the lights go out. The sound of the power dying is a soft pop, and then a long inhale, like the building is holding its breath to see who screams. For a half second, the dark is total. Then exit signs bloom green. The house lights tug back to a dim enough to make faces into smudges. A hand catches Imani's wrist hard enough to find bone. "Down," Tywin breathes. He drags her into the space between the first row and the stage as the boys in varsity jackets step up like doors closing. She feels the texture of gym wax on the floor through her palms. The air smells like dust hot from a light bulb, and the stubborn, old wood scent of a place where applause has been more frequent than funding. On stage, something topples one of those lakefront crates. A lid skitters. Vale's voice stays smooth. "Everybody relax," he calls. False alarm. Happens in old buildings. He laughs like the headliner charming a restless crowd. "We good?" A whisper threads in from the back, a soft click of a door and a shoe, and silence. The unknown red eye above the catwalk blinks twice and dies like it remembered shouldn't be seen. Imani shifts to her knees. Tywin's hand is shaking on her sleeve. The varsity boys spread into the aisle. "Up," she says quietly, and rises without hurry, pushing the fear down, keeping her hands open, her face readable, her body a straight story. Vale lets the smile turn sympathetic when he sees her. "Stage wiring," he says, as if offering a fact, as if they share a problem. "We've had an electrician booked for weeks. Budgets, you know. School doors are the same everywhere. Heavy, metal, slow." She hears one ease shut near the lobby. Whoever clicked it is still in the building. "Can we not play theater with my students?" She says, pitching her voice so it skates on concern instead of anger. "Our students," Vale returns lightly. "Miss Carter, right? You care. We like that." Tywin edges closer, still behind the boys. His face has that calculation in it, like a kid counting friend by friend how much trouble the truth costs. Come take a look, Vale says, patting the top of a crate as if it's a podium. Not a secret. We give kids phones when their parents can't afford one. We do ride vouchers. We place tech internships paid. The kings don't pay. We do. We do it above board. You got crates with burners ready to be programmed in a locked closet, Imani says. Above board's got different handwriting. We got donation phones that need setups, he says without blinking. Because the district can barely afford soap in the bathrooms, Miss Carter, don't mistake resourcefulness for guilt. Someone in the wings snorts. The boys on either side of Tyron go still, their hands deep in pockets. It's a threat with a shrug on it. Imani raises both palms a fraction. No cops, Vale says pleasantly. No lies. You showed. That matters. The burner in her pocket buzzes again, a vibration against muscle. She doesn't look. Talk then, she says. Talk here? He spreads his arms, silhouette in the low light, like he was drawn with a ruler. Or talk somewhere you don't have to keep your voice steady, because children are watching? You invited me to an empty building in the dark to be delicate about my tone? She lets a thread of humor through. Pick a row. She moves first, so it looks like she chooses. Tyron hangs back. The varsity boys relent just enough. Vale climbs 2 steps behind her, his voice a notch lower, like the sound guy slid a fader. My program takes kids the kings look at and gives them hours, he says. Work, checks, schedules. If I'm being honest, we take the ones most likely to fall. We hold them upright. And the keys? She asks. The crowns carved into desks? The locks swapped fast? That maintenance room with your logo on a tote and the building camera cooked blind? You're seeing systems, Vale says. Good. See harder. The kings mark things. The kids mark things. We cover things. And sometimes we get messy because we're busy. I can't answer for every padlock in this place. Answer for the kids who disappear and return hollow, Imani says. For Tyron getting lost in a transfer, 2 different adults can't confirm. He came to me, Vale says quietly. The kings had him doing errands. He thought he owed them. We offered hours and a crew and an exit. He took it, then decided to be a hero and slip off schedule. You see kids the day they crash, Miss Carter. I see them all the slow days before. They reach the mezzanine. The aisle carpet holds shoe prints like memories. Imani leans on the rail and watches the stage. Tyron has stepped under the proscenium lamp, jaw set. The boys are shadows at his back. Tell me who's he, she says. Vale's smile goes crooked. He? Tyron says you think it's you. He says it isn't. He says he sees everything. That's a man, Vale. Vale thinks about lying, then chooses something slicker. We have a building engineer who knows every access point, and an assistant principal who knows every child, and a district IT vendor that keeps adding cameras I didn't ask for. You could pick a he off that tree every hour and still be wrong by lunch. Names, she says. You're undercover, he says. You have your own list. Don't insult either of us. Her burner buzzes again. It's either the unknown or Theo or Gaines, and all 3 make her feel like her back has a target on it. She keeps her shoulders square. I'm not here to fight you, Vale says. I'm here to offer a swap. Information. We both want the kids free. You think you'll free them by putting a man in cuffs. I think I free them by making the kings bored. We can argue philosophy, or we can compare notes. Start comparing, she says. 3 kings recruiters teach free boxing at a basement on 75th, Vale says. They offer rides after because a car with a baby seat looks safe. They keep track of which kids have parents who work nights. They love the ones who pray at Wednesday youth group because it means they want belonging. The man who drives the van is a cousin of a man who cleans this building. Name. She doesn't blink. Eric Odom, Vale says, 49, keys for everything. Says he's retiring, takes overtime like it's oxygen. I don't have a badge. I can say that out loud. You probably can't. Imani lets nothing show. Gaines told her he had a man 3 months from retirement. Of course, the man with favors has keys for everyone and enough overtime to build a second salary. Of course, that man's name floats at the surface of every rumor. You helping me, she says slowly, or pushing me where you want the light? I'm doing both, Vale says, because I want you to see who I'm not. On the stage, Tyron lifts his chin. I'm ready, he says to no one they can see. It's almost a prayer. Ready for what? Imani asks. For me to stop being a file, he says, and the boys flinch like the air, move differently between the words. The lights come fully on, like someone remembered where this switch was. House, stage, exit, everything too bright after the dark. Vale's face smooths into his public skin. Tomorrow, he tells Imani softly. My office. 10, door open. You can bring whoever you think protects you. I'll bring pizza. You'll hate me less when you see how unglamorous it is. He gives her a card like they're at a networking event. Carson Vale, director. The email is a first name and a dot and a promising domain. The phone has an 872 exchange. He is the kind of man who knows how phones look when they ring in rooms full of donors. Tyron's eyes are on her. The boys guide him toward the side door, not touching him, touching him. He mouths something small, pier. The shape of his lips is a hook in her day. Gaines meets her before first period with coffee that came from a pot older than the internet. Odom's in at 9, he says. He's union. He grumbles if he thinks he's not being treated like one. I'll handle it. Odom's name is riding somebody's pitch, she says, and doesn't say whose. I'll handle it, he repeats. His jaw is tighter. The green of his tie is a little bolder, like armor. The morning churns like a cheap washing machine. Kids late, teachers later, Whitaker mispronouncing a girl's name and then saying, "Oh, you changed it on me," when corrected. Imani catches Dre pocketing a folded sheet from the copier tray. He opens it to show her without irony. It's a neighborhood map with circles around laundromats and free meal sites. Price's handwriting in the margins. He give to everybody, Dre says. It sounds like he's trying the words on to see if they fit belief. At 9, Gaines takes her down to the basement that every school hides. The paint is a tired institution green. The air tastes blue with bleach. A radio plays softly in a room full of mopeds hung like sleeping animals. Eric Odom looks exactly like someone a building trusts. Black, mid-40s to 50, wide hands scarred by years of metal and solvent. Expression guarding both friendliness and its limit. Mr. Odom, Gaines says, and switches to his church voice. How you doing? Closer to Friday than Monday, Odom says. He takes a slow look at Imani. You the sub who got kids out the building without nobody getting trampled. I'm Miss Carter, she says. You sound like somebody's daughter who was raised right, Odom says, and she files the compliment with equal parts warmth and caution. People can set traps with raised right, too. Gaines eases into the point like a man easing into cold water. We had that outage in the auditorium, he says. Camera in East Wing fried. Door got left open that shouldn't have. Fire panel tripped wrong, Odom says. Auditorium draws too much when the stage lights are on. Camera got surge from idiots plugging a fog machine in a wall outlet that can't hold it. Door? I don't know about that. I'll look. Lakefront's got a tote in the east closet, Imani says mildly. Phones in a bag marked to be programmed. Odom's face doesn't move much. They give the school paper towels for free when the district can't. They got keys for the place because they throw us volunteers. If they break a lock, I tell them to buy a new one and keep moving. Phones ain't my problem. Cleaning up puke in the main boys is my problem. Who else has a master? Imani asks. 4 of us, Odom says, tapping the key ring at his belt, where a dozen silver moons swing. Me, 2 night guys, 1 bay fill-in who's new and not fast yet. Gaines here got a set for emergencies. 2 safe keys in the office that people who don't work here like to borrow and don't like to bring back on time. Gaines doesn't deny it. Can we look at the east closet? She asks. Sure, Odom says. And I'll tell you what I tell everybody who wants to turn my closets into their little kingdom. Don't mark the door with your sign like you own a gang, because I paint over that mess every Friday out of spite. His eyes narrow just a fraction at her lack of surprise. She keeps her face neutral. He walks them down hallways kids never see, the arteries that make a school move without the kids knowing what moving requires. He has the lumbering grace of a man who's spent his life gliding heavy carts through small spaces. They stop at the custodian's closet that stares at Imani every time she's on that wing. The triangles have been painted over with a square of gray, 1/2 shade off the original, just like she noted. The lock is the old scratched one again. Odom twists 3 keys one-handed, muscle memory. Inside, the bleach and soap and paper towels hold court. On the left, the red cart with its mop looks like a lazy tongue again. On the right, the lakefront tote sits in full view, like it's too legal to hide. Knock yourself out, Odom says. You break it, you buy it. Gaines clears his throat. Eric. I know, Odom says, voice light. Chain of command. But Miss Carter sounds like somebody raised right. He winks at her. It should feel like a kindness. It feels like familiarity. That's different. Imani flips the tote lid. The bag with phones remains, but the post-it, to be programmed, is gone. In its place, a sheet of paper slid half under the wristbands like a trick. She slips a corner free. A roster of names with columns marked with clean little squares. Student IDs. Parent numbers. Consent? Yes, no. Then a column headline placement with 3 options typed evenly. Data, logistics, community. The next column is just a number from 1 to 8 written by hand. Most are 6s, a few 8s. Next to Tyron Parker, 8. Next to Dre, blank. Next to Kisha, 7. What's that? Odom asks like he hasn't seen it before. It's the kind of question you ask when you need to know what story to pick. His eyes don't linger on the 8s. Hers do. It's a sign-up, she says softly, for kids who think someone's helping them get a job. Lakefront handles that, Odom says quickly, too quickly. They ain't criminals. Kings handle it too. Gaines adds, lower, not at all like a denial. By putting a kid on a corner and calling it street team, everybody uses the word placement like it isn't a loaded gun. Imani slides the paper back under the wristbands like she never saw it, like she didn't see the 8 next to a name she now can't unsee. We should tighten that lock, she says. We should burn the tote, Odom mutters, then smiles to make it a joke. I'll get a new hasp on this by afternoon. If the district signs my timesheet for the last 3 they never paid. He locks up. He looks right at her like he's measuring her, like a barber eyeing the shape of her head before the first snip. You watch your step, he says suddenly. Folks who don't know this building think it's a TV set. It's not. You bleed here, you can't cut to commercial. Appreciate the poetry, she says. I got a daughter your age, Odom says. She teach 3rd grade on 35th. She thinks the kids are going to save me from myself. Kids don't save nobody. They give you a reason to keep your mouth shut. He jingles keys and strolls off whistling nothing. Friendly, Gaines says, but there's iron in his voice now. You trust him? She asks. I trust him with a mop, he says. And with a lock that keeps mice out. I don't trust him with politics. He's got cousins. He rubs a hand over his mouth. I fed lakefront names last fall, he says finally, quiet enough that the pipes wouldn't hear if pipes could gossip. Kids with adults working nights. Kids hanging by a thread. I thought I was steering them toward a net. If I put anybody in a bag instead, I need to know yesterday. She lets him keep his eyes on the floor. Thank you for saying it, she says. Now we look. She meets Tyron at dawn because he asked for water and because early is when this city tells the truth. The lake is a cold muscle flexing undercloud. The pier nearest the beach is a concrete finger pointing at nowhere. He waits there with his hands in his sleeves and a hat pulled low. The varsity boys are nowhere. My moms thinks I'm at a bus stop, he says. His breath ghosts. You look like you slept in a place with rules, she says. They got houses, he says. 3 flats where boys sleep in the living rooms, and somebody calls that stability because there's food on a table. They call them safe houses. Staff live there too. Nobody fights because fighting gets you bounced to a couch without a blanket. I've been on that couch. A blanket is a big deal. Kings or lakefront? Tyron laughs without humor. You say it like they 2 different streets. They meet at the corner every week. Names, she says. I don't have big ones, he says. I got working hands. There's a man in a van. He bring us to a warehouse where the brick looks new but the rats look old. They put us on computers for data prep. We call it listening, and we got scripts. You delete what you're told when you scroll through a phone. You move things to a cloud. You see names and numbers, and you start to feel like a camera on a long neck. That's all data. Logistics is boxes. Hand to hand. Community is selling this in the school like it's church. And he? She asks. He sees everything? Tyron looks out over the flat water like he expects it to hold an answer. Odom got the keys, he says. But he's a lock. And the man with the master? The one I mean doesn't work here, Miss Carter. He says. He visits. He comes to the talent nights and talks to the kids about jobs like he's a coach, and heaven is a LinkedIn account. Prays with the moms and takes pictures with Councilwoman Rainey. He was a detective once, I think. Or he knows how to use cop words. He told me I had a gift, and he wasn't talking about writing. He knew too much about my brother in jail. He knew when my mom's shift changed. He told me you were coming before you knew you were, and he told me to be nice to you. Imani's mouth goes dry. What's his name? Tyron's eyes come back to her. There's pity in them, which she hates. Theo, he says. He comes by Vale's office sometimes. He ain't on a salary sheet, but everybody acts like he pays it. The wind lifts hair at her temple. It feels like the sky unzipping. She hears boats that aren't there. She hears her own voice in another room saying Theo wants me to go slow. She hears Theo's thumbs typing. Stay teacher. Kids nutcases. My handler's name is Theo, she says, not breathing. Randall. Tall joking, laugh too easy, Tyron says. He wears old gym shoes with his suit like he ready to run. He smells like peppermint and gun oil. He told me he could make charges go away for a cousin if I helped him make a friend look useful. You looking useful, Miss Carter. The first gull slashes a line over the water, a punctuation mark in air. Imani is very still. Why tell me? She says. Because I thought he was going to fix it, Tyron says, voice small suddenly, like he shrunk into his coat. And then I watched a boy who wasn't me get put in a van for a legit interview and not come back. And I asked, and they said he transferred to Ohio. He makes the word into what it is. Nothing. And then Theo laughed like he didn't hear the part where I asked, boy's name? She asks. Jameer, Tyron says. He sat behind me. He limps sometimes. He draws cars in the margins of math. On Ms. Pike's seating chart, under the note to keep Deandra away, Jameer's name looks like it was written fast. She remembers because Ms. Pike's hand went careful for the other names, and hard there. Imani presses her thumb into her palm until she feels the pressure wake up her hand. She bites each word so it will sit straight. If you see Theo again, you say nothing. If he texts you, you save it and you do nothing without me. If a van comes, you go the other way. If somebody says, safe ride, you run. Kisha went last night, Tyrant says, after the pep rally. She wanted to see the internship lady with the blonde twist out and the tattoo of a tulip. Vale says she'd be good for community. Imani's throat tightens. Did you see her come back? He shakes his head. Where do the vans go? She asks. Calumet, he says, down by the water where trucks sleep. A place called Forge. They got a paperwork office in front and a warehouse out back. The men in jackets go in the front. The boys go out back. She memorizes Forge like a cut. You'll hear from me, she tells him. Not on a school phone, not on a burner. I'll leave you a note where the Baldwin photo is. You memorize it and eat it if you have to. He smiles for the first time in days. It looks like a fragile thing that knows it's not long for this world. You're funny when you're not trying to be, he says. Miss Carter. Go home, she says. Make your mother a breakfast and a lie. I'll make this mess into something somebody's scared of. Make Theo scared, Tyrant says. Please. He runs because boys always run when they've said the most dangerous thing they know how to say. She texted Theo from the bus 3 minutes after he gave her the assignment. She would tell him everything she found. He would say be careful. She would say she always is. She doesn't do that now. She stares at his contact. She deletes nothing. She locks her phone like it's the only door she can control. Lakefront's event that night looks like Hope with a step and repeat. The auditorium is decked in a banner that makes the logo wave into triangles every time the air conditioning coughs. Councilwoman Rainey talks about workforce pipelines and violent prevention. She stands with a domestic posture, the way politicians set their hands on pulpits when they want to look like mothers. The boys and girls look straight at the future, lit by a cheap gobo on the curtain. Vale moves through the crowd on rails, offering slices of pizza on plates like communion, laughing with aunties and cuffing kids playfully. Imani doesn't wear a badge. She wears Miss Carter's cardigan because Miss Carter blends. Her eyes tick over the details. The volunteer named S.R.D. stamping wrists with triangles that look like a brand. A folding table at the back labeled check-in with a laptop open to a spreadsheet that looks like the roster in the closet. A woman with a corporate tote collecting signatures with a fountain pen that looks like it knows how much it cost. She catches Kisha near the sidewall. Kisha's denim jacket has 2 new pins on the pocket, one a tiny microphone, one a book. Her hair is twisted into rope that says she had help in time. She looks proud the way 17 looks proud. Ms. Carter, she says, softening around the mouth. You here to yell about homework? Homework's just a decoy, Imani says. I'm here for the pizza. Kisha laughs. They hiring me, she says, unnecessarily, and then shrugs like she knows she's supposed to play it cool. Community team. Posting content, running school events, mentoring middle schoolers. They say I got a voice. You do, Imani says. Use it to say no if your stomach says no. Kisha looks away, then back. I feel seen here, she says. You know? I do, Imani says, because she does. Because that is the trap that feels like a couch with a blanket. But sometimes the people who see you first want to own what they see. Kisha's eyes sharpen. You think it's fake? I think nothing is free, Imani says. I think we ask what they want in return. Posts, Kisha says, smiling, getting younger girls to show up, saying the cops ain't no help. She smiles sideways. You gotta admit, that one is easy. Sod intercepts brightness like a storefront. Kisha! Come meet Councilwoman, she says, hand on Kisha's elbow, gentle but efficient. To Imani, she offers a smile that takes a picture of Imani, files it, then throws the picture away. Thanks for supporting your student. Imani watches them go. Vale steps to the mic. Thanks, Afunder. Thanks, the school. Thanks, Rainey. Thanks, our partners in public safety. He nods at Imani. She doesn't nod back. Her phone buzzes from a number that isn't Theo's and isn't the unknown burner. It's a rideshare text with an address and a plate. Your safer ride is arriving. White van, 6:55 p.m., driver Jonas. She looks around. The stamp line hands out triangles and safer ride wristbands like VIP passes. She tails the van 20 minutes later in a borrowed car that belongs to a cousin of Gaines who owes him a favor. She tells herself she's just making sure the driver obeys the posted speed. The van moves east, then south, then farther south where South Shore gives way to places the city forgets until the tax season. Past the tracks, past cheap motels, past a billboard for a law firm with a smiling black attorney who looks like he keeps a suitcase packed for nightly news segments. The van turns at a gate that says Forge Logistics Appointments Only, a guard in a jacket that says security nods and lets it pass like practice. Imani slows to a crawl 2 blocks away. The Chicago River's South Branch yawns like a throat nearby. She kills her lights. She sees the van door slide. She sees boys hop out, shoulders up, hands in pockets. She sees Kisha follow, head up, trying to look like she belongs to herself. She can't go in. She is one woman and a cardigan, not a team in armor. She takes pictures like a coward and a witness. She catches the triangle spray-painted tiny near a side door. She catches a man in an old bomber jacket with a limp and a head built like it was carved without patience. He holds a clipboard like it keeps him from floating away. He looks up once at the night, then melts inside. She calls no one. She texts no one. She sits in the dark and counts backwards until she reaches 0 and feels nothing. Her phone buzzes 5 times in a burst, and then once, like a knock pattern. Unknown number. You're in the wrong zip code. Funny how cars without stickers look like cops, even when a black woman's driving. Unknown number. Drive away, detective. A link follows. She doesn't click it. In her head, she hears Theo laughing too easy. She hears him calling her by the nickname he used once, Eam, and the way she told him not to. She drives away because a choice sometimes looks like preserving what cover you have left. She does not sleep. She does what her mother taught her to do when a choir solo scares you. Mark your breaths. She marks and marks until the morning finds her. At school, Whitaker corners her at the copier. We're lucky to have Lakefront, she says. I remember when these kids had nothing but corners. These kids have brains and hands and grandparents, Imani says, voice even. They've always had something. Whitaker smiles like the slap didn't land. You're so passionate, she says, meaning other things. Gaines told me you kept very calm the other night when the lights went out. I would have died. She laughs, bright. Drama. Come to my class sometime. We're doing August Wilson. I'll bring extra breath, Imani says. Price finds her between periods. Kisha's aunt came by, he says. Kisha got home late and happy. She says she's working 3 nights a week with Lakefront. They gave her a ride home. Aunt says she's proud. Get a copy of her schedule, Imani says, not looking at him. Make it look like you need to track her extracurriculars for college essays. And if she's not in class on the days she's not scheduled to work, you call me instead of the office. Price doesn't ask why. He just nods. Tyron's mom asked me if he's back enrolled. I told her maybe. It is a sin the hoops we make women jump through to get the truth. It is. She says nothing. Vale texts at 9. Pizza, 10. Bring whoever makes you feel official. He sends a smile that looks like a sticker. She ignores it until 9:58, then walks into the front office with her cover face on and says she has a check-in with a community partner. Gaines watches her go down the hall. His mouth is a hard line. Vale's office is brighter than the rest of the school. Plants that aren't dying. A framed photo of him in a tux with a woman in a green dress at an event where people donate money to clean conscience as much as floors. A whiteboard with bullet points that say deliverables and outcomes. The lakefront logo in the corner, triangle smiling. On the floor, 3 boxes of new phones with the company seal still on them. Donated, Vale says, like a joke. You get yours with a hitch? Sometimes it's called a warrant, she says. He grins. You didn't bring your friend in the gym rafters, he says. I'm choosy, she says. Let's talk about Theo. Vale goes still the way animals do in the woods when the wind changes. He recovers fast. Theo who? Same Theo you share a coffee with in this room, she says. Let's stop the game. I know you know him. I know he's got a way of showing up where police and politicians shake hands. I know he talks to kids like he can move court dates. I know he's got a laugh that makes smart girls want to kick him. Vale's mouth twitches. I don't schedule his visits, he says. He shows. I'd prefer he didn't, but he comes with. How do we say this blessing? He drops names like dimes in a collection plate, and people clap along. Who hands him the plate? Vale looks up at the ceiling like it will grant him a word that won't sting. Your house, he says. Or the committee with your house in its title. He spreads his hands. There's the police, and then there's the police. He likes the second one. The second one isn't my house, she says. He isn't my family. He will call you his niece if it helps, Vale says. And say it with enough warmth that your mother likes him. She hates that she can hear the beat of truth inside that. She hates that she is thinking about what Theo said at her mother's table about the choir soprano, and how he washed his hands himself instead of letting her mother serve him, and how he praised that like it made him thoughtful. You keep logs, she says, because she needs action now. Who rides where? Who gets what? Who checks in and out? I need to see them. I'll show you one stack, he says. You'll think whatever you wanted to think before you saw it, because that's how we have to talk now. But yes. He drops a file on the desk like a gauntlet. We aren't hiding. We're busy. I thought that would make me a hero. Turns out it makes me a suspect. The logs are tidy. They list names and times and license plates. They list mothers as emergency contacts and mothers as the first to not answer. They list addresses that don't quite map when you know the bus lines. They list placements as if pieces on a board. She flips pages until her thumb finds Jameer. It says, Safer Ride to Forge, out 710, in blank. Missing returns, she says. Sometimes a kid goes home with a friend, or a cousin takes them after, Vale says. Councilwoman loves those partnerships. Community. You know how many times I've said that word and not meant it because the woman with the checkbook wanted to hear it? Where's Jameer? She asks. In the wind, Vale says. Or in Ohio, if you want to insult me. We're not snatching kids. We're putting them in rooms where they can be found. The men who snatch have queens tattooed on their necks and drive cars with tinted windows and call your phone from numbers that end in OO like the last 2 digits are a flex. Kings, she says. He nods. Her phone dings. She glances, instinct winning. Theo, coffee? Jokes? I'm near you. It feels like the text is in the room. You want me to put my hands where you can see them? Vale says dryly. Tell me you didn't invite him, she says. I don't invite the wind, he says. I put rocks on paper and hope it doesn't blow. Theo appears in the doorway like a man walking into a party he already owns. He's in a gray suit and those old gym shoes and that peppermint smell always riding ahead of him like a commercial. There she is, he says. Miss Carter, you having pizza without me? Shame. She turns her head slowly. Every part of her wants to grin and throw a stapler and ask the wrong question. She does none of it. Mr. Randall, Vale says, affable enough to be mistaken for sincerity. We were just talking about outcomes. Love and outcome, Theo says, sliding into a chair without being invited. You doing all right? You look thin." He says it like an uncle, and it lands like a claim. "I'm doing my job," she says. She doesn't let pass. "And I'm in the middle of a conversation. You two play nice," he says. "We need each other." He turns to her, softens. "Councilwoman's going to ask the school to extend Vale's access. It'll hit the board docket next month. We want to keep that smooth. We don't blow up the East Wing closet like it's a conspiracy. We say partnership, not pipeline." "What are you telling me?" she asks. "Keep my hands off." "I'm telling you the timeline," he says, smile easy, eyes not. "So when you choose a fight, you pick one you can win." She watches the way Vale doesn't quite shift and knows he didn't plan for Theo to crash this scene. She thinks about the boys in jackets, about the van melting into a door labeled appointments only, about the little 8s written in neat hand next to names, about the way Tyron said, "Please," like asking for the moon. "You texted Tyron," she says. "Told him to be nice to me." "I told him to trust the process," Theo says. "He's got a gift for listening. He's got a gift for following instructions. Those kinds of gifts can turn a life around if someone puts him where he needs to be." "Where he needs to be," she repeats. "You're sure that isn't Ohio?" Vale huffs a laugh he can't help. Theo smiles wider, like he just got a hand he knows how to play. "You feisty today," he says. "I like it." She stands. It feels like the only power left that isn't being watched. "I'm going back upstairs," she says, and brushes past Theo in a way that does not count as a touch. He starts. She doesn't turn. "Don't." Dre is waiting in her room after last bell, sitting on an empty desk like it's a stoop. He spits something into the trash that might be gum and might be nerves. "Heard you was talking to the lakefront man," he says. "And the funny man in the old shoes." "We talk to a lot of people at school," she says. She marks papers as if it were the only thing in the world she knows how to do. "Kisha didn't come to slam today," he says. "She texted me while you was at the assembly that she had to go do community. Sad took her. She said she'd come back with flyers. She didn't come back." Imani looks up slowly. "What time did she leave?" "Fourth period," he says. "They got her out the office like it was a field trip." "Price sign off?" she asks. He shrugs. "Gaines did. I saw his pen move. I saw his face look like he didn't want to." She's on her feet before the sentence lands. She heads for the office. Dre tails her. Gaines meets them at the threshold, eyes already answering. "Saad asked for Kisha," he says. "Said Rainey wanted a student voice at a council staffing meeting. I made a copy of the pass. I called Price. I told him to call me if she didn't come back by 3. And," Imani says. "Price called," he says. "I called Vale. He said she was in a session with girl mentors at the lakefront space. He said they'd walk her back. Then nobody walked her back." Imani doesn't let herself breathe until the edges of her vision stop narrowing. "Call Rainey," she says. "Now." "She'll say it wasn't her meeting," he says, already dialing, face setting. "She'll say she's at City Hall and her calendar is on live TV. Call anyway." He does. She does what she can't stop herself from doing. She texts Theo. She says, "Kisha gone." "Where?" He writes back too fast. "Checking." Imani texts Tyron. "Stay home. With your mother. Lock the door. Block every number you don't know." He sends a thumbs up and then, as if he knows the wake needs lightning, a shrimp emoji because of the one time she said she hates them. At 6, Price calls. Kisha's aunt says Kisha texted working late. "Safe ride," he says. She sent a heart. The heart is the kind you send when someone is looking over your shoulder. Imani heads for the door. Whitaker says something about boundaries and self-care that makes Imani want to put a staple in the wall and name it after her. Gaines falls into step. I'll drive, he says. You'll want your hands to be free. They head south. The city sheds pretense the way people do when they get home makeup off. Shoes kicked. The forge yard is lit like a stage. 2 vans are parked nose to nose like they have secrets. A guard checks a clipboard and frowns like it didn't sign up to frown this hard. Imani and Gaines get out like they belong. They don't belong. Odom is there, in a new jacket, not limping. He looks like a person who has come to pick up ours. We have a pickup, Gaines says. Kisha Wallace. She's a student here. Her guardian is waiting. The guard shakes his head. Appointments only. We called, Imani lies. Her voice makes it true. Odom ticks his eyes between them and the clipboard and the van and the man at the corner in a B cap. Let them in, he says to the guard. He says it too easy. He says it like he owns this gate, even if he doesn't own the lock. Inside, the warehouse is a map of stacks. Plastic wrap whispers when a draft runs, the sound like 1,000 tiny hands clapping. The air is chemically sweet, like oranges and new plastic. In a corner that's been cleaned until the floor shines, a circle of girls sit in metal chairs, knees pressed together. Kisha sits among them. Saad stands at the edge holding a clipboard and looking bored like she has been waiting too long for Imani to break some rule so she can point. Ms. Carter, Kisha says, relief cracking her voice. We're doing media training. I didn't have service. They said you knew. We're going, Imani says, and holds out her hand like a mother holding a toddler. Now. Saad steps in, smile honeyed and sharp. We're doing a safety module, she says. They all signed. She's a minor, Gaines says. I'm her school. I didn't sign. Saad looks at Odom as if he will move the sky for her. He scratches his jaw, making a show of thinking. Let the girl go, he says. We ain't trying to get nobody in trouble. Kisha stands. The other girls stare at their knees. Saad holds her clipboard like it weighs her down. On the way out, Odom falls into step. Quietly, he says, You look for devils in men who ain't got enough time to be devils. He glances at the exit sign. Your devil is upstairs. He wears a suit and old sneakers and sits in rooms he don't belong in with a smile like a penknife. Gaines hears it and doesn't pretend he didn't. The door bangs shut behind them. In the car, Kisha cries for the first half of the drive and then turns the tears off like a faucet. I felt stupid, she says, because I didn't think anything was wrong until I looked up and didn't know how to get home. That's how they do it, Imani says. They make you love the room, and then they ask you to lock the door yourself. Kisha breathes in through her nose, out through her mouth like a science class exercise. Am I in trouble? You're in a story, Imani says. The trouble is the person holding the pen. Kisha looks out the window at a city that looks like the inside of a pocket. You gon' hold it? I'm trying, she says. Her phone pings twice. Theo, you went to Forge. Cute. Stay out of it, Im. You got what you wanted, girl, safe. Don't make noise that gets someone shut down we need. She replies nothing. 10 seconds later, drink water. He sends a blue heart. She wants to throw the phone in the river. They drop Kisha off. Her aunt thanks them with her eyes, then with tamales wrapped in foil, because that's how thanks moves when money doesn't. Imani eats one standing at the sink in her apartment and tastes cumin and panic and love. When she turns her water off, her room is not quiet. It is breathing. She sees it in the mirror first, the corner of an envelope tucked under the lamp, the kind of manila that comes from offices with carpet you don't get to walk on. The little triangles are drawn in pencil on the flap. The name on it is written in block letters a child could read. Cole. She doesn't reach for it. She lifts the lamp by its stem and walks it to the bathroom, flicks on the exhaust fan, opens the envelope inside the tub like any paper might be a powder. It is not. It is photos. Her face from different angles. Ms. Carter at the bus stop. Imani leaving Forge. Detective Cole leaning over Price's desk. Ms. Carter in the auditorium, with Tyrion's lips almost touching her ear. A note in blue ink on one of them. Choose a life. There is a small plastic key in the envelope too, crown-toothed like the first. But this one is cut deeper. A notch added. It's on a ring with a tag that reads simply, 317. Her phone purrs into life, like a cat that knows when to be a warning. Unknown number. If you want Shamir, stop pretending you don't know which room to open. Tomorrow. First period. Or the video goes to the board with your name bolded. She should call someone. She stands in her bathroom with the fan humming and thinks about every person she could call, and the way their voices would bend the air. She thinks about Tyron at the pier, about Kisha's ungrown bravery, about Dre not running because he decided to stand still meant adult. She thinks about her mother's soft hands and how she always smelled like powder and paper and the little bit of air she stole for herself on Sundays. She doesn't call anyone. She folds the photos back into the envelope and slides both into a cereal box like a thief. She lies down fully clothed and stares at her ceiling like it might tell her the name of the person who wants her to get reckless. When sleep finds her, it is a cheap thing with sharp edges. The bell for first period never sounds friendly. Today, it sounds like a countdown. She walks into 317 with a lesson on metaphors in one hand and a key that promises a ruin in the other. The kids murmur the way kids always do, sleepy, sharp, on the edge of singing. The James Baldwin photo watches them all. Tyron is not in his seat. Kisha is. Dre leans back 2 legs of chair off the ground like a dare and then tilts forward when he catches her eye because he knows there are days to be easy. She sets her bag down. She stands still. She watches the door like it might breathe. Whitaker pops her head in as if the entire city is a stage from which she can make an entrance. Fire marshal's coming, she says. Make sure your exits are clear. Always, Imani says, and smiles just enough for both of them to walk away alive. When the kids are just loud enough that another sound would hide. She slides her hand under the desk where the first phone was taped and finds the new tape. The feel of it is a bruise she pushes anyway. The keys are under there too, heavier than the first, ring cold against her fingertips. They trying to make you play a game, Kisha says quietly without looking up from her notebook. Don't let them. Write your 8 lines, Imani says just as quiet. Make it so good I don't have to make this day about anything else. The door eases open a half inch. A folded paper slips through. Dre scoops it up in one movement so fast an athlete would be proud. He hands it to her without reading, because that's the kind of boy he is on the days he chooses it. It's a map. A crude one. The 3rd floor is drawn by a hand that loves shortcuts. An X marks the corridor behind the stage. The key tags 317 matches the closet drawn there. Under the X is a little crown and 3 triangles making a star. Beside it, in a slanted, tidy hand, 10 minutes, no alarms, alone. She looks at the clock. She looks at her kids. She points at Kisha. Read Brooks, she says, and pick 3 words you wish you'd written. I don't read out loud good, Kisha says, then squares her shoulders and reads like her life wants to go somewhere, and the words are the door. It's beautiful in that way kids are beautiful when they punch fear in the throat. Imani slips out as if the bathroom is where she's going. The hallway is a slow river. Price is down by the counselor's office, coaxing a parent into believing in the process. Gaines is at the end of the hall, arguing with the delivery man about paper that came in the wrong size. Odom is nowhere and everywhere you feel a key. She moves like she belongs. The backstage corridor smells like sawdust and old paint and a memory of rain. The closet is where the map says it is, tucked behind a curtain where a student wouldn't bother. The key fits a lock, that didn't know it could fit. It turns with a click like a tongue on teeth. Inside, a small room that looks like a set, a corkboard. Photos pinned and connected by red string, because whoever did this either meant to be clear or meant to impress. Kids' faces, arrows to street corners, and leadership titles that sound like jobs. Jameer's picture has a circle around it and a question mark. Next to it, a photocopy of a consent form and a sticky note that says, "Mom called, promised bus card. Follow up." There's a box on the floor with phones labeled by first name and then initials J, P on one, KW on another. There's a printed sheet that makes her stomach knot. A list of teachers to watch, and next to Carter, 3 words. Not a teacher. She hears shoes in the hall. She hears breathing that is not hers. She closes the door, but doesn't lock it. Steps behind the coats hung like costumes, goes still. The door opens. Someone enters and doesn't turn on a light. They know where the boxes are without sight. They move like they have been in this room, more than she has been in her apartment. They take a photo down. They pin a different one up. They pull a Sharpie from a pocket and write a number next to a name. The smell of the marker is a slap. Imani can smell the person now, peppermint, and a trace of the oil men spray when they want women to look twice. And under both, something metallic. She closes her eyes and doesn't give herself time to think. "Theo," she says, voice even. The breath in the room pauses. The Sharpie's tip squeaks a line longer than it needed to. There's the soft laugh that has been a comfort and now tastes like copper. "Ms. Carter," he says, "you always were curious." She steps from behind the coats. In the small space, they are too close for lies to look anything but cheap. She sees the board the way his eyes want her to see it. Messy, but heroic. She sees it the way it is. A web with a spider who likes to label his meals. "You put Jameer in a van," she says. "I put him where someone could watch him," he says. "I'll put him home when the other men stop looking." "You put me in a room and called it partnership," she says. "I put you in a school because if I didn't, Vale would get to pick his own hero, and she'd be easier to break," he says. "Take the compliment, Em." "Don't," she says. "Don't call me that." He smiles as if the sound itself is a win. "You did good yesterday," he says. "Got the girl out without blowing the whole thing. You'll get a medal for that when nobody's watching. You want me to keep quiet while you disappear boys and reappear girls for a photo op? You want me to make your web look like a safety net? I want you not to burn a bridge while I'm walking kids over it," he says. "You think I like Vale's grin? You think I like a councilwoman who only calls when a camera's rolling? You think I like men with crowns on their sleeves? I like the kid who gets home fed and not punched. If I have to make friends with wolves to borrow their teeth, I do that. If it makes me a villain in your head, fine. I hope your head keeps you warm at night." She looks at the board again. The red string from her name connects to the word exposure. The red string from Tyron runs to listen. Jameer's has a knife drawn beside it like a joke. "It is not funny. You're not the only one with keys," she says. "You're not the only one with maps." He moves closer, too close, voice low. "I need you to stay inside your cover and help me place 2 kids this week where I can keep eyes on them," he says. Do that, and Jameer comes home. Tyron finishes out the semester. Kisha gets a summer internship that's actually at a library and not a warehouse. You blow this up and I can't keep the men with crowns from collecting on their debts. And I promise you, sweetheart, don't. I promise. The men in suits love a missing boy more than they love justice. They make speeches. They cut ribbons. They break my phones. They don't break the king's. Choose a life, like your little fan mail says. Choose one where you get to keep your mother safe. The room is small enough that her heart has to share it with him. She holds his gaze until she tastes the iron change to bitterness on her tongue. "Get out of my room," she says. Nothing in this building is yours, he says. You know that. But yeah, I'll go. He slips past her with the grace of a man who has learned every exit. He disappears down the hallway. The bell for the end of first period rings like an accusation. Kids flood the corridor like a river, and the world goes on pretending the water isn't rising. Imani stands alone in a closet with a board full of names and strings, and all she can hear is her brother laughing in a sunlit kitchen 10 years ago, before a knock on a door made the word police into a weapon. She mounts the board in her memory like a map burned into the back of her eyes. She touches the key on the ring. She pulls Jameer's photo free. In the classroom, Kisha has written 8 lines that taste like blood and mint. Dre has circled 3 words from Brooks like talismans. Lurk, strike, die. Tyron's seat is still empty. The burner under the desk vibrates once like a heart under the floorboards deciding to beat again. Unknown number. Ohio is a funny word. Unknown number. 10 tonight. Lake. Bring your choice. She writes, "We real cool" on the board and underlines "we." She takes a breath. She chooses for now to pretend this day is about metaphors until the hour hands free. And outside 317, in a hallway that smells like pencil shavings and a fight nobody in charge wants to name, Theo Randall laughs with someone on the phone like the joke is going to last longer than the building. She doesn't end the joke. Not yet. The sanctuary smelled of lily and candle wax. The pews were full, but the air was heavy with an unease that had nothing to do with the summer heat. Donna stood in the back, wearing a navy dress and clutching the hymnal like it was a weapon. Her father, Pastor Leonard, stood at the pulpit, his voice steady, but his hands trembled on the Bible. The FBI had moved in 2 days ago. The church's bank accounts were frozen, the hurricane relief fund seized, and half the deacons had been served subpoenas. Dana had played the part of shocked daughter perfectly, at least in public. But inside, she was hanging on by a thread. "Before we begin today's message," her father said, his voice slow and deliberate, "I know there's been talk, rumors, accusations." He looked up and found her in the back row. "My daughter's been home for 3 months now. I thought she came to help. I realize now she came to destroy." Gasps rippled through the congregation. Dana's knees nearly buckled. Flashback 2 days earlier. The agents hadn't knocked. They swarmed the church office while Dana was going over invoices. Guns holstered but visible. Badges flashing in the fluorescent light. "Dana Brooks?" One of them asked. "Yes?" "Special Agent Marks. You've been our primary contact for the financial investigation." Pastor Leonard had walked in mid-sentence. His face had gone from confusion to cold fury in seconds. "What is this?" he'd demanded. Dana hadn't looked at him. "It's a federal search warrant." It was the first time she'd said it out loud to him. "Present, Sunday service." "I won't stand here and claim I'm perfect," Pastor Leonard said, his baritone rolling over the murmurs. "But this," he motioned to her, "this betrayal cuts deeper than any wound I've known." She wanted to scream that he'd betrayed them first, that he'd taken money meant for broken homes and flooded neighborhoods, that he'd smiled in the pulpit while keeping offshore accounts. But she stayed quiet. She knew the case was fragile. One wrong word could tank the testimony. The confrontation. After service, he found her in the fellowship hall. The plates of fried chicken and collard greens on the buffet went untouched as people kept their distance. "You think you're the savior," Leonard said, low and sharp. "But you've just made enemies you can't even name." "I think I stopped you from digging a hole you couldn't climb out of," Dana said, "and from dragging the rest of us down with you." He smiled without warmth. "You think I took all that money for myself? You really don't know how deep this runs." Donna felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" I wasn't the only one. You want to go clean, girl? You better be ready to bury more than just me. Twist the other names. 2 nights later, Special Agent Marks laid out the extended findings in the motel room Dana had been using as her safe house. It wasn't just the pastor. It was members of the local city council, 2 prominent business owners, and even the state relief office director. Your father was a piece of the puzzle, Marks said, but the rest? They're 10 times dirtier. Dana thought of the small-town smiles, the handshakes, the warm greetings in grocery store aisles. How many of those faces had been in on it? The officer Marks leaned forward. You've done enough to put him away. But if you stay in, you can help us dismantle the entire network. Dana stared at the coffee cup in her hands. The easy choice would be to walk away, take the witness protection offer, and start fresh somewhere with no Sunday sermons and no guilt. The hard choice was to stay and keep playing the role of the dutiful daughter, even while her father rotted in a holding cell, until the rest of them slipped up. The jailhouse visit. Dana stood on the other side of the plexiglass, the phone cold against her ear. You always were stubborn, Leonard said, smirking. But tell me this, baby girl, when all's said and done, will you still be able to look in the mirror? Or will you see me staring back? I'll see the truth, Dana said. He laughed, slow and bitter. The truth don't set nobody free. It just makes you a target. Resolution, a new Sunday. Months later, the church had a new interim pastor. The lily were gone, replaced by simple daisies. The congregation was smaller, but lighter somehow, like a storm had passed and left fresh air behind. Dana sat in the back, anonymous now, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt. Her phone buzzed Marks with another lead. The work wasn't over. She stood, walking out into the sunlight. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was coming home to hide. She felt like she was coming home to fight. Not every story ends with justice. Some just stop where the paperwork does. But if you listened closely, this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we ignore, the assumptions we let slide, the voices we tune out because they don't come in the right tone. Somewhere, someone's living with the fallout of this story, not as a headline, but as their everyday. So if this story stayed with you, don't let it fade. Shine it forward. Ask more. Doubt what's too quiet. Because what we choose to see, or not see, decides what happens next. Like, comment, share, not for clicks, but for clarity. Because awareness is how silence breaks, and how truth finds daylight.